Welcome ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here today and taking the time out of your busy schedules for this week's event. In this session we're going to be talking about the management and the containment of crisis as it relates to travellers and travel managers. The objective of this session is to share with you our collective knowledge on managing crisis and significantly improve your ability to identify and manage a crisis, but also improve your business travel efficiency. Well, as per the advertising, from natural disasters to terror attacks, everyone has to be on their toes every time he or she leaves home. Are you prepared to handle a crisis if you're a traveller, represent the company the travel works for, or MICE travel supplier? So the first thing I suppose we should cover is, who am I? Well, I've aided thousands of travellers and hundreds of companies with their business travel demands across Asia, inclusive of China. I've directed and managed numerous critical events from companies such as the Bali bombings, Mumbai terror attacks, Sichuan quake and the Thailand airport closure. I've published multiple articles on the subject of travel risk management, and I'm a regular presenter on this particular subject. So first of all, I have a couple of questions to you. Who has never experienced some kind of crisis related to their business travellers? Secondly, who has experienced some kind of crisis related to their business travellers? Well, as we can see from those results, is that by and large, pretty much every business traveller or business encounters some sort of crisis related to the act of travel. It's inherently bound with threats, and there is always something that impacts upon our travellers. So during this session we're going to discuss the travel risks, myths, crisis management, plans and options so you can immediately compare or improve your own travel risk management systems for your travellers or travel management department. First of all, crisis by definition is something you don't have a plan for, or something in which you are unprepared. Additionally, it can be a series of events that in concert create a crisis. Events or issues that occur to which you have a plan and strategy is merely an incident. Distinct difference between crisis management and incident management. But particular to crisis management or leadership, the first thing to do is to clarify what is the difference between crisis management and leadership. More importantly, which one is the more important? Well, as I said earlier, crisis management relates to the response to events that threaten your business, travellers or travel activity. The events that lead you and you follow the plans, decisions or actions. However, distinctively, much different is crisis leadership. It's, on the other hand, it's about getting ahead of those events and issues to prevent, manage and contain the impact to your business and business travel activities. While management is a portion of the leadership demand, your actions and your involvement lead the outcomes rather than a more passive wait and act approach with pure crisis management. Crisis leadership is the least practiced of the two, but the most significant in terms of results and reduction in risk and impact. If you take nothing else away from this session, it should be that your focus should always be on that of crisis leadership and not that of crisis management. Let's look at some travel-related myths. There are many myths and half-truths around crisis, disruptions and threats within the travel management sector. Much of this information is originated from travellers themselves, or the media, and even travel managers, friends, family, or even so-called experts. For example, many travellers and planners are focused on terrorism. The reality is you actually have a very small chance of being exposed or affected directly by a terrorist act. It doesn't mean you shouldn't discount it as a threat altogether, but it shouldn't dominate your plans or processes if not a proportional threat to you and your travellers. Conversely, almost everyone overlooks motor vehicle accidents. Yet they happen far more frequently and can have devastating effects on travellers and are the least common plan contained within company travel management departments. Travellers and travel managers must be prepared, educated and have supporting plans for any event that has the potential to delay, disrupt or harm the traveller or the business overall. Some of the most common events, one I touched on earlier, is motor vehicle accidents. Then we have airline delays or cancellations, airport closures or disruptions, transport delays, bad weather, sickness and illness, petty crimes, hotel fires, political disputes, and even demonstrations and gatherings. Motor vehicle accidents within your own country can be stressful and dangerous, but on an overseas business trip they can be 100 times more challenging and dangerous. Consider the language, the local authorities, first responder, standard of healthcare, families, and support in your plans as part of your initial response. Airline delays and cancellations happen all the time, but they're not just an administrative response. You may need to consider safety, transport, quarantine, security threats, government response, and a widespread suspension of services to overcome the issue and maintain safety of your travellers. Airport closures and disruptions, failed systems, electrical problems, threats, weather, construction, and so on can prevent you from even getting on your flight. Consider the impact this has on your plans and how your traveller will need to possibly extend the stay, move to an alternate airport, or find accommodation. All other transport delays and disruptions can create crisis when everyone no longer has access to trains, buses, key roads, or even water transport. Have a plan and add to it your immediate decision-making process. When we talk about 2010 and certainly the commencement of 2011, we've seen all kinds of travel affected by natural disasters and weather. Weather and natural forces have and always will impact upon travellers. It does and will continue to occur. It's highly concerning how unprepared travellers and companies are for volcanic eruptions, typhoons, floods, earthquakes, and general bad weather. People get sick or feel unwell all the time. This is compounded significantly when travelling. The standard of care, language, access, cost, and other complications such as choice and numerous other location-based concerns will determine just how at risk your traveller will be. A single, one-size-fits-all plan or solution will fail, and you need to be aware of these issues immediately with the onset of an affected traveller. Crimes are a reality of any city in the world. However, travellers seldom know the risks and may be preyed upon by thieves and criminals. The loss of phones, money and other items may seem less likely to constitute a crisis, but when overseas and injured or not able to speak the local language, all these simple events can create a major concern for your business travellers. This can be amplified if you have a senior executive or a group of executives affected. Hotel fires and emergency are more common than most people think. The immediate threat to an individual is fairly obvious, but the impact that the lack of accommodation choices can create from a temporary or even permanent closure of a hotel is a much bigger concern. This was graphically displayed during the Mumbai terror attacks, as it was an extraordinary event. In that particular instance, when most of the best or preferred hotels were now unavailable in a key part of the city. This removed thousands of rooms for business travellers and forced many to cancel or significantly alter travel plans just because there was a lack of suitable accommodation options, whether affected by the terror events or not. Any event that alters the political stability of a location or region or results in thousands of people out on the streets constitutes a risk to your business plans and travellers. They can happen spontaneously or they can take time to develop. The immediate dangers and the ongoing disruption can have a major impact on your business or travellers. Again, plans, preparation, and thought to these issues will greatly reduce the impact and improve your business too. Now that we've removed the most common misconceptions, let's focus on the management and containment of crisis. First of all, are there any questions before we continue on? Crisis management. The key to successful crisis management is planning, training, plans, decision making and adaptability. First of all, let's look at planning. Given the issues previously covered, you now have a better insight into how and why planning is important to remove the more emotive issues from the realities of real business travel threats and events. Planning needs to include multiple departments and perspective to be truly effective. One of the greatest weaknesses I see regularly is that departments continue to manage the risk of travel through multiple departments with multiple plans. The input and plans need to be unified. Depending on the company, it may include travel managers, security, HR, finance, marketing, the C-suite, and also operations. All plans need to be continuously updated, location-specific, aid in the decision-making process, and modular enough to have elements extracted quickly and effectively. Modern, effective plans embrace technology, Rapid, efficient access to information along with running updates are all hallmarks of a modern sustainable plan regardless of the size or the issue affecting the company. No plan is effective without training and rehearsal. Training, whether through simulations, drills, or live full-scale exercises, is vital to the success of any crisis situation. Such sessions don't need to be boring or overly complicated, but must include travel managers and planners, along with the more common crisis and emergency managers. Increasingly, training is becoming a mandatory requirement for key positions and roles. It can be linked to internal HR processes, but must support the business objectives and be measurable on how it reduces the risk to people, the business, brand, and travel demands. While the plan creates the framework for crisis decision making, teams can learn a lot from training on how and when to adapt their plans, how the team interacts, their strengths, their weaknesses, leaders, followers, limitations, tools, and many more planned and surprised outcomes are possible with effective training. Adaptations. No plan will completely script all the events, issues and options available for every plausible travel delay, disruption or crisis. You need to be able to adapt and to evolve from the original plan and intention. This can only be achieved with planning and plans and training. Are there any questions on what we've covered so far? Okay, now let's specifically look at the solutions. This is not something that you need to throw up your hands and is simply not achievable. That's untrue. So, what do you need to have in your plan? Here is the best travel risk management content for your plan specifically. The objectives. The objective is the single most important part of any travel policy. In the absence of remembering or being able to recall or access any other element of the plan, the objective is clear and concise and everybody understands it. It gets at least everybody moving in the same direction. It's vitally important. Any references that may be contained for the plan, the scope of the plan and who it covers, any legal aspects, any insurance details that may be required, and of course you can't overlook the reality and the necessity for finance components. Everything from reimbursements, the limits associated with reimbursements and financial acquisitions, priority, precedence, management authority or management authorities, that is the hierarchy of decision making, the specific situations in which you see this applied or circumstances such as response, and the procedures more than likely to cover such things as planning resources available, the tools that be utilised, the authority to make decisions or to mobilise these specific resources, any and all of the executive component, the decision making and any limitations that are placed on the plan or the individuals before they have to escalate or communicate with other groups. This also moves to budgets. There may be predefined budgets, training schedules, any compliance requirements that you may have with occupational health and safety, legal issues that I mentioned before, pre-trip administration, the use of providers, how the booking process is going to play out and what specific tools are required, accommodation, where, when, how much, the airlines that you will use, whether they've had safety reviews, whether they're viable, costs, any ground transport specific and relative to the location and activities being undertaken. Of course, safety and security is a component, but as you can see, it's not a dominant factor, but it's an essential element to make sure that all of these pieces work. Health and wellness associated with travel, because it does have significant demands upon the travellers and their physiology. This needs to be addressed. Any emergency components, the escalation or inclusion of various services. SOPs or actions on. That is those things that in event of event A, you will then